The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, a faint hum slicing through the Sunday morning quiet. Daniel glanced over from the stove, where he was flipping pancakes for their ritual brunch. The screen glowed with notification, and though he wasn't one to pry, the name Mark caught his eye, not a contact he recognized. The message preview was brief. Last night was... It vanished before he could read more, locked behind Lila's passcode. His stomach twisted, a subtle knot of unease. He shook it off, blaming the early hour and lack of coffee. Lila was still upstairs, humming in the shower, her voice soft and carefree. "Pancakes are almost ready," he called, forcing cheer into his tone. The words fell hollow, like they were meant for someone else's life. He poured batter onto the griddle, watching it sizzle, but his mind lingered on that text. Mark. Who was Mark? A co-worker? A friend from her yoga class? He tried to recall if she'd ever mentioned the name, but his memory came up blank. Lila bounded downstairs, her damp hair leaving faint wet spots on her sweater. "Smells amazing," she said, flashing a smile that used to make his chest ache with warmth. Now it felt like a mask, too bright, too practiced. She grabbed her phone, glanced at the screen, and tucked it into her pocket without a word. Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to ask, to demand who Mark was, but the question stuck in his throat. Instead, he slid a plate of pancakes toward her. "Blueberry, your favorite." They ate in near silence, the clink of forks against plates deafening in the absence of conversation. Lila scrolled through her phone, her thumb moving with purpose, her face unreadable. Daniel watched her, searching for a crack in her composure, a flicker of guilt, a nervous tick. Nothing, just a woman he'd loved for 7 years, sitting across from him like nothing had changed. But something had. He felt it in the air, heavy and sharp, like the moment before a storm breaks. That evening, Lila said she was meeting a friend for drinks. "Girls' night," she called it, tossing her purse over her shoulder. She kissed his cheek, her lips cool and fleeting, and was gone before he could ask who. The house felt too big without her, the silence pressing against his ears. He tried to distract himself with a movie, but his eyes kept drifting to her laptop on the coffee table. It was open, the screen dark but tempting. He'd never snooped before, never had reason to. But that text last night gnawed at him, a splinter in his mind. He typed in her password, the one she'd shared years ago when they were still giddy with trust. Her email loaded, and there it was, buried in a thread labeled work stuff. Messages from Mark, dozens of them, stretching back months. Not work-related, not platonic. Words that burned into Daniel's vision. "I can't stop thinking about you. When can we meet again?" Lila's replies were just as damning, laced with flirtatious edge he hadn't heard from her in years. "Soon. I miss you too." His heart pounded, a wild, erratic rhythm. Denial surged first. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, a joke, a role play. But the time stamps didn't lie. Late nights when she claimed to be working late. Early mornings when she'd been at the gym. He scrolled until his eyes stung, each message a fresh cut. Rage followed, hot and blinding. But beneath it was something worse, a hollow ache, the kind that comes from realizing the person you love is a stranger. When Lila came home, she found him on the couch, her laptop still open. She froze in the doorway, her purse slipping from her shoulder. "What are you doing?" Her voice was sharp, but there was a tremor in it, a crack in her armor. "Who's Mark?" Daniel's voice was low, steady, but it carried the weight of everything he'd read. Her face paled, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. She took a step back, clutching her purse like a shield. "It's not what you think," she said finally. The cliché, so absurd, almost made him laugh. "Almost. Then explain it." He stood, closing the distance between them. "Explain why you've been lying to me for months. Why you're texting some guy about how much you miss him." Lila's eyes darted to the laptop, then back to him. "It's complicated," she stammered. "Mark's just a friend. We got close, but it's not physical. It's emotional. I didn't mean for it to happen." "Emotional?" Daniel's laugh was bitter, slicing through the air. "You think that's better? That you've been giving your heart to someone else while I'm here, cooking your damn pancakes?" Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't move him. Not anymore. I was lonely, she whispered. You've been so distant, Daniel. Always working, always distracted. Mark, he listens. The words hit like a slap, twisting the knife deeper. He wanted to scream that he'd been distant because she pulled away first, that he'd been fighting to keep their marriage afloat while she was building a life with someone else. But he didn't. Instead, he said the words that had been simmering in his chest since he opened her laptop. Let's finalize a divorce. Lila froze, her breath catching. For a moment, she looked like the woman he'd married. Vulnerable, real, the girl who cried during their vows. You don't mean that, she said, her voice breaking. We can fix this. I'll stop talking to him. I'll do therapy, anything. He wanted to believe her, wanted to cling to the life they'd built. But the messages flashed in his mind, each one a betrayal she'd chosen over him. No, he said, his voice cold now, resolute. We're done. She sank onto the couch, her face in her hands, sobs shaking her shoulders. Daniel stood there, watching her cry, feeling the weight of his own grief settle in. He'd loved her fiercely, flaws and all, but love wasn't enough to mend what she'd broken. He grabbed his keys and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. The night air was cool, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by the ghosts of marriage that never really existed. The pain was raw, a living thing clawing at his chest, but there was a strange relief in it too. The truth, brutal as it was, had set him free, and as he drove into the dark, he knew he'd never look back.